I don't know why I have the Terminator song stuck in my head, considering this is Cyberpunk. Okay, here's what we got here. Origin PC was like, hey Jay, you want to check out our new Origin PC Mini ITX build? And I was like, I mean, I guess. And they're like, do you want to see what it can do against Cyberpunk? Yes, I do. You know what? Considering Cyberpunk has realistically turned into the new Crisis, I was like, what the heck? Let's see what a small form factor computer can do against Cyberpunk 2077. Full disclosure, this video is sponsored by Origin PC. Fortunately, they have nothing to do with Cyberpunk, so it's a very agnostic, neutral review, I guess. So anyway, this is like a smaller version of the computer that we took a look at for the, trying to get splinters there. That's very splintery pine. I love the smell of wood in the morning. It's windy, it's noisy, I'm sorry. We did a video a few months back where we took a look at Flight Sim 2020 and their rig. This is just a super tiny version of that computer, but slightly more modern because it has an RTX 3080. Yeah, they found one. I assume this box right here is gonna have our power plug and all that sort of stuff and peripherals, extra power cables, power plug, RGB cables. Essentially, this is all the stuff that comes with the motherboard. It's a chungus for sure. It's chunky, like it's thick. You know what I'm really happy to see? Instapack. That way there's no broken graphics cards. Obviously, we're gonna go ahead and start by taking a look around. You guys can also take a full look around Origin PC's website. You guys will find a link down in the description below. So tempered glass side panel. Wow, okay, that really wedged itself down to the bottom, which is nice. That's why you use Instapack. All right, so this big little chungus thick brick of a PC, actually, that makes it sound bigger than it is. I mean, it's tiny. This is the Origin PC CHRONOS. You can obviously scale this depending on how you purchase it with different graphics cards, Intel or AMD. This particular build, because we are planning on throwing some Cyberpunk 2077 at it, clearly has top of the line specs in there. So it's windy, sorry for the squeaky door, can't do anything about it. This one has an RTX 3080 in there. This is a Founders Edition card, which is probably, to be honest, the best card that you can put in here in terms of airflow, because you've got the pass-through, you've got the exhaust. It's got a mini ITX AMD motherboard from Republic of Gamers, obviously from Asus. It's an X570 chipset. It's got 32 gigabytes of Corsair Dominator Platinum RAM, but to power it all, clearly it's using an SFX power supply. That's a 750 watts, so that meets our requirement for the 3080. But for the CPU, it's got an AMD Ryzen 9 5900X. That is a lot of CPU to have crammed in such a small case. Now, keeping it cool is a 120 millimeter AIO right here, which looks like it's a Corsair one that has a Origin logo on the top. Look, they've seen Steve's video. The tubes are on the bottom. What I also like though is I used black sleeve cables on here. Here's the unfortunate dongle that comes with the card, but whatever, I digress. It also has the little mini dim dot too. So this is actually gonna be our storage right here. This little guy sticking up. Let's take a look at the back side. So here's another tempered glass side panel. Let's go ahead and do the peel. That was satisfying. So we've got a 120 millimeter intake fan attached to the AIO. We have a 120 millimeter exhaust fan, and then we have a little throwback 80 mil. It's either 80 or 92. It might be a 92 mil. I think it's a 92. No, it's an 80 because the 92 has the outer holes on there. I've never seen something this clean on the backside. So we obviously got some LEDs in here. There's an LED on the bottom. There's one on the top, so this thing's clearly gonna glow. We've got the hub on here, so we can add more RGB to it if we want. Look, and we have an 870 QVO, what size is that? A 1 terabyte SATA SSD. So this guy here has an NVMe SSD as well as a 1 terabyte SATA. So there's gonna be plenty of storage. Let's button it back up. Let's get it fired up. Let's get some 2077 installed. How did you put the panel back on? Yeah, clearly it has a Cyberpunk theme going on. But before we even get into that and start talking about performance, I wanna let you guys know that you can actually win one of these CHRONOS machines because Origin PC and I have teamed up to not only bring you this review and kind of review this system with Cyberpunk 2077 and see how the performance is, we've also decided that one of you deserve to win one of these computers. So if you wanna go ahead and enter the giveaway and learn more about it, go into the description down below. You guys will find a link to Origin PC where they are hosting the giveaway, and you can learn all you need to know about how you can get your hands on one of these. Hover mouse. So as you can see, there's a Cyberpunk 2077 wallpaper and theme already applied here. Even the IQ is set up to 2077 with the teal and the yellow. Hey, even we did that back there. I don't know if you noticed or not. But anyway, so I'm just showing you here that because it is an AMD CPU, I installed Ryzen Master. It wasn't pre-installed. I went ahead and did it. And then we've got PBO or Precision Boost Overdrive turned on. One thing to keep in mind, I just want to talk about the form factor of this case. It is only a single 120 AIO. And as such, that means that you're gonna have a lot of work cut out for a single 120 to keep a 5900X with PBO turned on under, what is it, dusty? Anyway, to keep it under the temps and stuff that you want. But what I do wanna show is that it is possible. We've had the system on running for a while now, and we're gonna go ahead and do a Cinebench run right now. Just kind of show you guys what the boost clocks and stuff are gonna be. PBO is set by default. I didn't go in and tune any of the PBO stuff. It's just we're kind of like when you turn it on and leave it all for the auto calculations and algorithm, it's gonna do it all itself. So as you can see right now, under load, we're at 85.29C, close to our 90C limit. I wanna keep in mind too that 90C limit's a little bit lower than you would see it on maybe a desktop, but we do have the power scaler and PPT and EDC and all that kind of turned up. So that is because of the fact that we're letting it boost to, it's going to 4150. It's not going any farther than that, again, because of the temperature and some of the other power limits here, like the amp limits. So our score should come in at just under an 8,000 or right around an 8,000, which is a little bit less than you would get on a desktop or a full-size desktop, yeah, 7968. So it's a little bit less than you'd see if you had this hooked up to like a 240 AIO or a 360 or a full water-cooled setup. But remember, we are running on an ITX motherboard, which has a smaller power delivery to it. It is a big CPU on an ITX board running off a single 120. So if you're wondering about how the performance and the thermals are, that's about as much stress as we can give it right there. Most tasks are not gonna hit the CPU nearly as hard as something like Cinebench. So when we go into games and stuff, it should be perfectly fine. There is actually a new driver today. So we're gonna go and download the latest driver. There's also a small update to Cyberpunk. So one of the reasons why this video is a little bit delayed from the game first launching is we knew that there was gonna be updates coming to the game to boost performance a little bit, fix some of the bugs, as is always the case with brand new titles, especially AAA titles. So we should be able to give you a much more realistic experience now that the first round of patching is done and the fact that we had game day one drivers, but we're also gonna have game ready drivers as of today. So I'm kind of curious, if you guys downloaded the latest drivers and latest updates for Cyberpunk 2077, did you see any performance improvement, or is it still like the new Crisis? This is really being kind of dubbed the new Crisis. But so here's the settings. Let's go to graphics here. We're at Ultra preset. This is the last preset before ray tracing turns on. And then I want to kind of see what our performance hit is gonna be. Now I'm gonna make a couple changes here though. I'm turning off chromatic aberration and film grain. Those are two things that I personally don't like in a video game. I don't like film grain. I'm not watching an old movie. I don't need it to look like a movie. And chromatic aberration is a little overdone. There's just way too much banding and separation of colors in the corners of the screen, way more than you would ever see with like a real lens in chromatic aberration. So I turn it off just because it doesn't look great. Motion blur, I'm bringing from high down to low. Because I do like the blurring of a scene. That's something I like. I even leave it on in Battlefield and that makes people mad, but I don't care. It's the way I like to do it. And then all these other settings we're leaving at the default for Ultra. But as you can see, ray tracing is off and DLSS is off. I wanna see what happens to our performance with DLSS alone and then ray tracing. I'm doing this at a part of the game where there's not gonna really be any spoilers. This is very early on. So if you guys haven't played the game yet, I'm not gonna show you anything here with the story. I'm specifically just gonna kind of move around the city, and which is what's it called again?
Night City.
Night City. I was like, New City? No, Night City. But as you can see, we're about 80 FPS here, 97% on our GPU, and 81C on the temperature. That's pretty warm. And that's because of the fact that there is gonna be, a fairly limited amount of cooling to this. Now, I've not gone in here to IQ and turned up the fan speeds or anything. This is completely out of the box. But one of the first things I'm gonna do here is I'm going to go ahead and go into Afterburner, and I'm gonna go ahead and just sort of kick up this fan here. So the fans are audible. It's running at 81% right now, but that is to be expected considering the fact that we do have a very difficult game being run here. So let's just go ahead and move around quickly, see what happens to the FPS. You can see it sort of drops from the 80s down into the 60s. Not stuttering or lagging though, which is kind of nice. Let's go ahead and bring in my car. Okay, whoa, dude. Okay, so now we're just gonna kind of drive around the city here, see what's going on. All right, so let's go ahead and just while we're sitting right here, let's see what DLSS does. We'll go DLSS balanced, I guess. There's not really like a fidelity change that's visible. One of the things I want to point out is how good this game looks, honestly, without ray tracing on. Like, look at this. I mean, these are screen space reflections, but they're convincing. These are really convincing. Ultra performance, okay. Okay, so we were only a little bit above the 144, but yeah, I mean, look how fuzzy that is as the car's going by. The back of the car specifically, I mean, look at that right there. Like, look at the grass. That looks like the video that we had where we had the video settings wrong and everyone was like, this looks like crap. So let's just go balanced. I mean, yeah, look at the difference in the car now. The grass and everything looks fantastic. All right, let's turn on ray tracing and see what that does. The cool thing is you can actually turn it on in real time here. So, oh, by the way, if you turn on Fidelity FX CAS, either static or dynamic, you lose DLSS. These are just different versions of upscaling, although DLSS is NVIDIA's direct implementation. So this is just ray tracing on, but then everything's off by default. So we'll just do reflections first and see what that did to our FPS. Okay, so we lost about 10, 8 to 10, because we were like 112, weren't we? This truck's just like, hey bro, come on, let's go. That is not practicing safe firearms safety. So you can see the FPS has dropped a little bit, but you can see now the reflections look a bit more realistic. Let's go ahead now and turn on the next setting. Let's do ray trace shadows, and I have a feeling that that is the one that's gonna give us a big hit to performance. Okay, so this is morning time right now. A cowboy just walked by.
Cyber cowboy.
Frick.
City. That's a perfectly reasonable reaction.
Why did he explode when he hit the ground? Okay. Oh God, they're trying to set my car on fire. Ah! Ah! I'm stuck. So the reason why I'm fast forwarding is ray trace shadows only takes effect in the daytime. There we go. So there's the shadows and such. It didn't really affect our FPS too much though. We're still hovering just under 100. Look at our graphics card though. It came down temperature wise about 3 degrees because we turned the fan speed up. That was
a double barrel? Where'd you get that? Oh my God.
And that took down the pole.
What shotgun is that? I need that.
All right, so let's check out ray trace lighting. So what we should see is some lighting bounce from the sun here off the ground and light up some of this area just like it would in real life. Because you see how there's this harsh cutoff shadow and it's like dark, no sun, sun. We should see that sort of blur together. Okay, let's just see what Psycho does. Why not? It really didn't change that much.
The FPS did.
Yeah, the FPS did. So let's do this then. Let's go ahead and see if we can tune the FPS now. Let's bring this back to like medium. No, we leave it medium and go up to performance on DLSS. There we go. So we're at 85 now. This was that really hard to run part. Okay, so we did a little tuning here. We turned down the screen space reflections because they're replaced with ray trace reflections. Anyway, we brought down some of the volumetric clouds because of the fact that I never really looked at the sky too much. And we are in city center right now, which is like one of the hardest parts of the game to run. So you can see we also have DLSS set to performance. We're at 80 FPS right here. If we were to go into like, I don't know, the Badlands or way out in the outskirts, it'd probably get a lot better with the FPS. Officer, officer. What? All I did was walk up to you. You have an American flag on your gun. Act like a patriot, will you? Whoa, 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 whoa. Why are you so jumpy? What's the crime? What did I do? One thing I do want to point out though is although the temperatures are at 81C, GPU boost is still in full effect because we're at 1935 to 1950 megahertz. Clearly our 5900X is having no problems rendering this game whatsoever. And yeah, as you can see, we gained about 30 FPS by moving away from the center of the city a little bit. It is such a beautiful game though, I'll tell you this. Like I know Phil was really like nerding out over this. I came around once I turned off chromatic aberration and stuff, and who runs like that? Oh God, get out of here. Oh no, it's
you don't
locked.
have skill. You're too dumb.
Crap, crap, crappity, crap, crap, crap. Fast travel! Dude, I'm not sure if this is the update or just the fact I'm on a 3080 now and not the 2080 Ti like I am at home, but this feels so much smoother.
Dude, crazy.
Oh! All right, so let's talk about the performance though. The temperatures and stuff, I think a lot of people might say that that seems way too high. I'm on the fence about that because it's within the performance spec of the graphics card. We were pushing it pretty hard. The R2 cores were doing stuff, the Tensor cores were doing stuff, obviously the CUDA cores were doing stuff. And remember, we do have a small form factor case here that is absolutely at the mercy of only two 120 AIO fans trying to cool the CPU as well as keep the GPU cool. But the fact that we didn't really lose any boost clock, even when we hit 81C, tells me that the card is obviously not having too much of a problem handling those temperatures. The CPU, on the other hand, in fact, we couldn't even monitor the CPU temperatures, but the CPU load wasn't even that high. It was only sitting in like the 20-30% utilization. Remember, this is a high core count CPU. But as soon as we turn the game off, you can see the temperatures are coming down. And it's important to note that these fans are also at their default settings. And I believe they're being controlled inside of the BIOS. We'll go take a look. Inside of iQOO, I couldn't find anywhere where the fans themselves were actually being controlled, because normally the AIO would control its fan, but if they're being plugged into the motherboard, then that means the software for ASUS, whether it be Armory Crate or whatever piece of software you're using for this particular motherboard, is probably going to have some control over the fans. So once again, a huge thank you to Origin PC for sending us this CHRONOS computer to have a look at and to get our hands on 2077, although I was already playing it. Yeah, it's a beautiful machine. It's a big, just little chunk of hardware that clearly has no problems playing the latest Crysis title. And if you also want no problems playing the latest Crysis title by getting your hands on your own CHRONOS, you guys can enter our giveaway, which is down in the description below. I mentioned this earlier in the video. Origin PC and Jay's 2 cents, that's me, have teamed up to bring a free one to one of you. You guys also can check out the rest of the stuff that Origin PC has to offer, whether it be desktops, small form factor PCs, laptops, or peripherals. You guys will find all of that stuff in the link down below. So once again, a huge thank you to Origin PC for sponsoring today's video. And if you guys want one, make sure you click at the links down below. Otherwise, you have zero chance of winning. If you don't enter, you don't win. That's the way it works. Can't win the lottery if you don't play. It's not a lottery. That's important to say. No purchase necessary. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.